Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Stefan, and today we're going to discuss grounding in nature and how the effect varies depending on where you are. So there's already a big difference between grounding indoors versus outdoors. Grounding and earthing outdoors is ideal because you are directly exposing yourself to those natural energies and frequencies like the Schumann resonances. And so we're going to discuss how these four different environments and elements affect your grounding experience based on geophysics and also my own personal experience. I have been grounding and earthing very deeply for a few years now. I often am sleeping in a grounding tent at night, no matter what the temperature is. So I have some very personal experience with earthing and grounding, how it affects your body systems, your central nervous system, your heart, your mind, your consciousness, and more. So we will dive into a little bit of that, but we will start with oceans and the grounding effect that you get when you go to the ocean. You get into the water, you stay at the beach, and that is a very strong grounding effect. So we will begin there. I absolutely love grounding at the ocean. It's one of the strongest grounding effects that you can achieve. And the reason why is because salt water is highly conductive. There are a lot of dissolved ions within salt water. These are charged carriers. They allow the flow of energy between you and the water. You're also very conductive. And as a result, if you go swimming in ocean water or any body of salty water, there is a very quick grounding effect that takes place. This can be achieved even if you just wade into the water with your feet. There are a lot of free nerve endings on the bottom of your feet, and this allows for energy flow to occur even if you're just standing in the water and the waves are lapping at your ankles. But if you want a full body grounding effect, then you can actually go for a swim or a soak, whatever. Now, there are many other aspects to this as well. During the daytime, you have solar energy charging ocean water. All these charge carriers absorb that energy. And so there's an overall energizing positive effect as a result. During the nighttime, you kind of have the opposite. What happens is that you have this solar energy go away, and now these charge carriers have released a lot of that energy. And so there's a little bit more of an energy pool from you into the water during the nighttime versus during the daytime. So if you go swimming during the day, it's often a very energizing charging effect. And then if you go, let's say, swimming in ocean water or wading in the water at night, it's a little bit of a faster energy decharge out of the body. Another thing to note is the water temperature. If the water is warm, then this is pretty easy on the body. But if the water is cold, like we have here in Iceland, then it is quite strong in triggering that, body constriction and then blood flow release. So it triggers the circulatory system very strongly. And so it's important to be aware of that, to not engage in anything that's going to give you hypothermia. But if you do get some body shivers, that is a very deep grounding effect. Just be very mindful of when you do that. That only happens to me if I go swimming for a long time and then I warm up in the sun afterwards. But that type of cold water plunge is very healing if done responsibly. So there are, of course, different ocean environments. You also get a very strong grounding effect just by spending time on the beach. You don't even have to get into the water, though that is ideal. You're also getting a lot of vitamin D synthesis, a lot of just the natural energies at the ocean. For example, there are ocean waves, and these are extremely low frequency in nature. So all of these roll in, and they create these very strong, what are known as seismic microtremors that propagate through the earth. And these can be measured for kilometers and kilometers and kilometers away from the coast if you have sensitive geophysical equipment. So here, for example, north shore of Oahu, you can see just some of these really big waves coming in. These are very high amplitude waves, and as a result, they are very strong, and they strongly trigger and activate the cardiovascular system. Their frequency range is in that 0 to 4 hertz, 0 to 5 hertz, but really 0 to 2 hertz. And a lot of these waves create these ultra low frequency microtremors that are like 0.1 hertz, 0.2 hertz, 0.5 hertz in their frequency. So this lines up with different body resonances that we have For example, blood pressure waves have a peak resonant frequency at 0.1 hertz. Your heart rate, if you're at 60 beats per minute, is 1 hertz. If you're at 75 or so, it's about 1.2 hertz. And then there are also your delta rhythms in your brain. These are 0 to 4 hertz. So it lines up with these natural ocean waves and microtremors that they create in Earth's surface. And just by being there at the beach, you're being inundated with those vibrations. Also, you get a lot of sound energy. It's very overwhelming, kind of becomes white noise, and this causes the body to naturally down-regulate its kind of sensory input, especially through the auditory nerve. And this allows for the body to kind of regulate itself and to de-stress, and this is overall a good thing. So you get some really amazing cardiovascular benefits by going to the beach and swimming in the ocean, really strong grounding effects. Just be mindful of water temperature, and overall, that's really a great way to rest and recharge and do it pretty quickly. You can get a big grounding effect, let's say in one afternoon, that will last for many, many days afterwards because of those long-term improvements in your cardiovascular health, your heart rate variability, and more. One reason it's so easy to take a nap at the beach is because of this increase in the delta rhythms at 0 to 4 hertz. You just have sympathetic resonance, and all of a sudden you find yourself taking a nap very easily. So if you've been struggling to sleep, going to the ocean, laying out, whether in the shade or the sun, is a very good thing to do. That'll help you realign your circadian rhythm. And that's one of the big aspects of grounding, is getting your circadian rhythm in line with the Earth's natural rhythms. So you have, of course, sunrise, sunset, light, dark, warm, cold. And the more you get aligned with that, the more you'll be grounded and healthy and well. One of my favorite places to ground are in mountains, because there is a very uplifting, positive effect when you ground at elevation. And the reason why is because positive charge accumulates at high points. So the higher up you go on Earth's surface, the more positive charge you're exposed to. Whereas if you are lower down in a valley or near sea level, then you're going to be experiencing a more negative charge. So when you are higher up in the vertical electric field gradient, you are closer to the ionosphere. This is the charged particles that surround our planet, the first layer. Then you have the plastosphere. And 50% of the total resistance that exists in between Earth's ground surface and the ionosphere is in the first 2 kilometers. So you really don't have to go that high up to start to experience this decrease in the vertical electric field, this increase in conductivity, and this overall increase in positive charge. So if you go higher up, there is more conductivity in general, and you're also closer to the charged particles of the ionosphere and those sort of energies. You also get this really kind of uplifting and bird's eye view on everything, just because you have so much sensory input coming in. Often, if you have a good view, you're seeing a lot. And so you're just getting a lot of really good visual sensory information and just able to kind of see things from a little bit of a clearer perspective. I know that when I'm at elevation, I'm grounding, I'm meditating, I'm earthing, I just feel like I am kind of in a higher level of consciousness as a result. Of course, you hear all these stories about yogis going to the Himalayas. That could be one reason why. And something else to keep in mind with mountains is that some mountains are actually volcanic. So they're volcanoes. And as a result, you have these bodies of magma that are closer to the surface. Now, igneous rocks in general are already more conductive than things like sedimentary rocks, but magma itself is very, very conductive. It is above its Curie point. This is the temperature at which it loses any magnetization, but because it is so hot, it actually is very, very conductive. And so you have these conductive flows very close to the surface in these areas that have volcanic energy. So I'm right now in Bali. There's a volcano, on this island. It basically is just one big volcano. So there's, more active volcanism here. Those magma flows are closer to the surface, and there's a more energizing, positive effect as a result of that. So when these volcanic areas cool down, they form igneous rocks. Those have remnant magnetization to them. They often create magnetic anomalies that alters Earth's magnetic field and the overall energy information effect that you're experiencing. And in general, I find mountains and hills and elevation a very uplifting, very powerful grounding effect. Of course, it takes some effort to get to the top, so it's a good workout too. And the one other thing that you may experience when you go up to the top of a mountain or a very large hill, like we have here in Slovakia, is that there are very strong winds. And wind itself is something else that has a very powerful grounding effect. So let's talk about that now. So there's a really cool effect that you get by grounding with strong winds. And this is because wind is especially good at cleansing the aura, your outer biofield. So when you go swimming in the ocean or you're grounding, let's say in nature with your bare feet or laying down, this has a very deep grounding effect in your body. But wind is really good at cleansing your biofield in your aura, and it doesn't really touch you as deeply internally. It works really well for those who have a lot of air element within them. And wind bathing liberates old energies and lets them flow out. Any loose energies that you have, anything that's attached to can be liberated and pushed away by the wind. I also find wind bathing really good for kind of releasing any mental loops that I have. Any mental energy, it often exists in this biofield, and so it can get kind of pushed away. Just let these energies emerge and then let them flow out, and that helps the whole process greatly. So going to high locations is one way to experience very strong wind energies, but of course sometimes the winds are strong wherever you are, and so that's a good opportunity to do an aura cleanse. It can take only a minute, though the longer you do it, the better. And the reason why this works is because the lower atmosphere is very dense. In terms of the actual number of molecules per cubic centimeter, there's a lot in the lower atmosphere, whereas if you go up higher, there's less. So there are a bunch of molecules always going by you, and the lower atmosphere is very resistive. It doesn't hold much charge, so they easily grab energy and just push it away. So when you are doing a wind bathing, for example, you get, if ideally standing barefoot, spread out your legs, your arms. If you have hair, let it out and just let this flow through you. And this effect is very, very quick because there's just so much rushing by you. We just don't feel that pressure that we live in. We're used to it. Another interesting thing is that ocean wind, like if it's windy near the ocean, which is often the case, it's more conductive in general because it's laden with these salt ions. So it's not terribly more conductive, but it is more conductive than, let's say, desert air, which doesn't have much of these ions within it. And wind bathing can be really good for those who have a lot of air element, or if you just want to do kind of like a mental cleanse, an outer biofield aura cleanse. It doesn't really work with you that deeply, but you can do it pretty often because it's often windy at some point during the day. So this is something that you can do to just quickly ground yourself, even if just for a minute. And I really find that valuable. And you often get this type of aura cleansing when you're at the ocean or when you are at the mountains, because there's often wind that is present there. So it's like this 1-2 combo that's really, really great. But it's also good to be mindful of, if you see it's windy outside, run outside, do a biofield cleanse, and you'll feel the difference. I can guarantee that. Lastly, I would like to discuss the grounding and earthing effect that you get when you are in a forest or jungle. And this is a very special grounding effect because of the fact that you are enmeshed in a communal biofield. So when you are grounding in a forest, you are grounding in a living biofield. Every tree, for example, is pulling up energies from the depths of the earth and then emitting this outwards as a magnetic field. Trees have very thick and shallow roots that spread out wide, but they also have thin roots that go very, very deep. And of course, roots contain a lot of water, a lot of ions, so channeling them upwards. This creates electric currents. Remember, ions are charged carriers. And so as you get these electric currents flowing up the tree, they're not that strong. These are, weak electric currents, but these generate weak magnetic fields. So these are subtle living biofields that are emitted by trees, by plants, Of course, we also create them. And so when you are in a forest, you're meshed not in the biofield of just one tree, but all of them combined. And this is very harmonizing. Trees are very much in tune with the natural rhythms of the planet because they can't change location. They have to experience sunrise and sunset, whether it's hot or cold, all the seasons, they can't move. So they are always in tune with the circadian rhythms, the natural rhythms of the earth. And so when you go to the forest, you experience this energy. And you can actually ground directly with trees, for example. It's very, very powerful. A lot of people do this. A lot of people talk about that. This is kind of like a Celtic druid type technique that you can do, which is just put your hands on the tree, try to find the place with the thinnest bark, plant your feet on the ground. Ideally, you're also barefoot, and then just allow those energies to start flowing through you. So just relax your body, relax your mind, and you'll feel this surge of energy. And sometimes it takes its time to kind of work through, but eventually you'll feel your entire body flush and the energy start to circle through you, cycle through you. This effect is amplified when it is wet, let's say just rained, and the tree itself is wet. That improves the conductivity. Your connection with the trees improved because tree bark is pretty resistive. So that's why you want to find the thinnest bark or an area where actually the bark is gone. But if you have some water with you, you can squirt the tree with some water, put your hands there, and that will improve that earthing effect with the tree. Just a note, don't do this in anywhere where it's like a gravesite or a cemetery. I wouldn't recommend doing that. I've done that, just don't do that. But just going in the forest bathing, just hiking in the forest is very, very grounding. But if you want to spend time with the tree, you can also climb a tree, mesh yourself in its biofield that way up at elevation. But you get a very strong grounding effect when you actually have your feet on the ground and you're holding onto a tree or some branches, something like that. Of course, you get really fresh air in a forest. So this is also very good for your health and wellness, for your mental health. And you're also going to be protected by a lot of those artificial electromagnetic fields, like from cell towers, like military and industrial frequencies, because the biofields of all the trees and living organisms will absorb those. So there's a protective effect that you get when you go into a forest where some of those energies decrease and you're just more meshed in the natural living energies. Now, trees, because they have these deep roots, they bring up telluric currents from depth. These most notably are the Schumann resonances. These are Earth's naturally resonant wavelengths of light that exist at 7.8 hertz, 14 hertz, 20 hertz, 26 hertz, 33 hertz. They form this nice frequency hierarchy that we evolved in. And so if you'd like to learn more about the Schumann resonances and how they interact with our health, our biology, our bioelectricity, all the way from our DNA to our actual health and wellness, our cells and beyond, then you can watch this video here. I hope you do that. Thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you found it useful, and I'll see you all in the next one.